One News Now. I'm Diego Castro. Here are the top stories of the hour. The Agriculture Department aims to achieve rice self-sufficiency in the country by the year 2027. The DA says it plans to achieve rice self-sufficiency through the Masagana Rice Program 2023 to 2028. According to the agency, its target is to rid the country of any need to import rice to meet demand, a year before the end of President Bongbong Marcos's term. The DA says the program aims to stabilize the country's rice supply up to 26.86 million metric tons, as well as lower rice inflation to less than 1% annually. It also aims to increase farmers' income by over 50% and ensure rice availability at all times by maintaining the National Food Authority's buffer stock. In relation to that, the NFA has earlier scrapped proposals to import 300,000 metric tons of rice for its buffer stock. This as the rice tariffication mandates the NFA to source its emergency buffer stock from local farmers. The DA says it is now studying where the NFA should source its buffer stock and the most ideal season to buy rice.
We are now trying to find out how NFA could really, buy its buffer stocks, at a price level na hindi siya masyadong makikipag-compete sa mga traders. It's really more of timing and where to buy.
Agriculture experts are split on whether the Philippines can achieve self-sufficiency in rice production. Federation of Free Farmers National Manager Raul Montemayor told the chiefs that this is doable. He said the government needs to provide more support to farmers and should not allow cheap imports to come in.
Kayang-kaya. Because our deficit is only about 10 to 15%. It's about maybe 2 million, 3 million tons. No? You just need to increase the present yield from about 4 to a little over 5, a little below 5. No? Doable yan with irrigation, with support to farmers.
But for former Agriculture Undersecretary Fermin Adriano, the Philippines won't be 100% self-sufficient. He cited several challenges, such as the growing population while natural resources remain limited.
How can you be able to make yourself 100% sufficient when we're defying the laws of nature? Kasi ang bilis ng pagdami ng tao, ang bilis ng paglago ng demand, pero yung perang nilalagay natin, yung lupa na natin o tubig na naroon, ay napakabagal naman ng paglawak, pagdevelop.
President Bongbong Marcos has ordered concerned agencies to begin preparing for the onset of El Nino. The government highlighted the importance of raising awareness on the effects of El Nino, which is expected to come in the second half of the year. This so the public may also prepare for how it may affect the supply of water and power in the country.
Notice niya kanina na dapat magkaroon tayo ng public awareness campaign. Simulan dapat ng mga government agencies, institutions, including mga public institutions ng mga eskwelahan or schools, na magtipid na agad ng tubig bago pa lumala yung problema natin na inaasahan according to Pag-asa.
The President has also tasked the National Irrigation Authority to monitor situations at dams across the country. This as lack of rain during the El Nino may lead to lower water levels at the country's reservoirs.
Ang pinakamabisa po kasi na flood control project is water management. So ito yung pag-construct po ng mga impounding dams, small river impounding projects.
However, Pag-asa warns that prior to the dry season, the country may experience heavy rains similar to those of Tropical Storm Ondoy's.
So generally, up to September, may mga ulan po tayong inaasahan. Malalakas na pag-ulan over the western sections. And kung tatanungin po ninyo, yung peak ng maraming bagyo for El Nino events ay nangyayari po during the month of July.
We'll be back with more stories after the break. Keep it here on One News. You're still watching One News Now. I'm Diego Castro. 2022 was the third best year in terms of office leasing, and demand is off to a strong start this 2023. But will that robust growth be sustained? Let's discuss updates on the property market with David Lee Chu, CEO of Lee Chu Property Consultants. Good morning, David.
Good morning. Thank you very much for having me in your show.
Yes, it's a pleasure. Let's start off, Sir David. Now, you said that 2022 was the third best year in office leasing. How did that happen, especially considering we really only shed all COVID restrictions towards the middle of the year?
Yeah, I mean, despite everything that's happened in the world between lockdowns and work from home, the desire of the labor market to just stay home, inflation and war and interest rates going up, people still generated jobs in the Philippines. The BPO sector created more jobs in the Philippines as the world went into crisis. And that's why you saw the office leasing activity touch 1 million square meters, almost 1 million square meters of transactions all throughout the country, 70% of which is happened in Manila. And will that continue? Well, the first quarter is usually the slowest month of the slowest quarter of the year, and yet it's off to a very strong start because we registered something like 260,000 square meters of office space transacted in the first quarter. You compare that to the first quarter of 2022, the 2023 first quarter numbers are 2x, 2 times that of the first quarter last year. So it's been a phenomenal start for the market. And it's not only that, the pipeline that we see coming up in terms of transactions is something a little bit past 500,000 per year. It's the largest number we've seen in a long time, in about maybe 3-4 years. We haven't seen this kind of pipeline in like 3 or 4 years since the start of COVID, and maybe even a little bit earlier than that. So the pipeline looks very healthy in terms of deals, and many landlords are feeling it. You know, what used to be a dearth of transactions in some districts are starting to see activity right now, and most of the activity, both transacted and pipeline, are driven by the BPO industry. So it's really supporting and encouraging to see this kind of level of activity.
Yes, Sir David, with good numbers that you just gave us now, how would you characterize it if you break it down, like growth in Metro Manila versus the provinces? Where are the hotspots?
So the hotspots are Bonifacio, Iloilo, Davao. And that's where most of the demand went in 2022. And in 2023, because there's hardly any space left in Bonifacio for big chunks of space, tenants are moving back to Makati. Next is that because they couldn't find space in Iloilo and Davao, many tenants went back to Cebu, which is why Cebu received a disproportionate share of the leasing activity that went to the provinces. And that's why I think Cebu will have a very good run this year. I think more and more leasing activity will enter Cebu and many parts of the Visayas. There's no more space also in Bohol. Many companies want to go to Bohol, and yet they can't find space there. And what's exciting, I think, is this year, Bacolod will have its time on stage, in the limelight, because there's no space in Iloilo, no space in Dumaguete, and no space in Bohol. Tenants that want to go to these geographies will want to go to Bacolod instead, because that's where scale happens. And so I think kudos to the third administration, kudos to the administration of Mayor Treñas. They've done a great job attracting tenants and investors to go to their cities and their provinces, and that's producing quite a bit of economic activity in those locations.
And let's talk about Pogos, Sir David. One Senate committee wants to ban them outright, but the Committee on Public Order, I think, now wants to just contain them in hubs. How do you think this might all play out?
Yeah, I don't think there's just one senator. I think there's a handful of them. So, but I think it's quite encouraging to see the Pogo numbers because they were starting to do a few transactions in 2022, and now they're scaling up in terms of activity, leasing activity. Now, I don't think it's a good idea to isolate them, or maybe the solution there is to have hubs as well as immersed in the city. Because at the end of the day, if you want this industry to grow or at least manage it, you have to make them assimilate in the communities instead of isolating them too much in so-called Pogo hubs, like what they did in Cambodia. It's kind of hard to sustain that in Cambodia. What will happen there is that the turnover of labor will be so high that operators will say, you know what, this is a better solution to be in the city rather than excluded from the rest of the population.
That's right, that's right. And let's move on to tourism. We know we're not seeing pre-pandemic levels yet, especially since Chinese travelers haven't come back in full force. Do you think this could all change?
Yes, because we are seeing a strong comeback from tourists in the Philippines. And if you look online in YouTube, so many foreigners are promoting the Philippines. Whether it's the islands in Bohol, the experience in Palawan, and the experience coming into the Philippines for the bypass Naya has been amazing. Has been absolutely amazing. And our friends, our closest friends are the first ones to come in. So those are the Koreans who've been here, who've been coming here for the last 25 years. A whole generation of Koreans have grown up in the Philippines, attracting more and more South Korean visitors to visit the Philippines. And then, of course, you've got the Americans. And partly because of the pivot from being pro-China in the previous administration to somewhere closer to the middle or middle right, towards leaning a little bit towards the American sentiment again. And that's producing quite a number of American tourists to the Philippines, predominantly executives from the BPO sector, clients from the BPO sector, as well as people from the government. And then the third component of that American tourism block are these Filipino Americans, very successful Filipino Americans all over the U.S. that want to make a positive change to the Philippines. So many organizations were hosted in the first quarter of this year, driven exclusively by Filipino Americans. Successful executives that want to make a difference in the Philippines. And they're not handing dole-outs. That's the important thing. They are looking to set up businesses here. And that process of setting up a business will change the entrepreneur landscape here, the work ethic, the amount of global network entering the Philippines, amount of capital entering the Philippines, and it will they see things that people on the ground don't see, opportunities that will bring us closer to a much better Philippines, working hand in hand with this administration.
Yes, but with the recent improved partnership between the Philippines and the U.S. and heightened geopolitical tensions because of all the exchange of words with China in Taiwan, will anything be affected in terms of tourism or any business with the Philippines?
I frankly don't think so. I mean, if you look at, for some reason, I don't think war is likely. There's very, very small incidents of war. And yes, a lot of people are talking about the possibilities of a war, but it just does not make any sense whatsoever for anyone to go to war. And I think the Chinese and Americans are very reasonable people. They don't want to go and cross that line. So for as long as that's the case, we will continue to enjoy traffic all throughout ASEAN. And also because China is now opening up to
Yeah.
tourism, and the entire 2022 was all about China lockdown as a country, and therefore tourism plummeted throughout the region. 10 million Chinese went to Thailand in 2019. 10.5 million Chinese nationals went to Thailand. And in 2022, I think only 200,000 people went to Thailand from China, if I remember the numbers correctly. That's a big drop all across the region, a big drop in tourism. But 2023 is going to be all about welcoming the Chinese tourists again, which, as you know, is the second largest tourism driver of tourism.
Well, here's hoping for the best, and thank you very much, Sir David Lee Chu, for joining us this morning. David Lee Chu, CEO of Lee Chu Property Consultants.
Thank you.
And that's it for this hour. I'm Diego Castro. Join us again at 11:15 a.m. We are One News, all sides, all the time.